Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the fascinating evolution of China's Tiangong space program. We're going to map out the incredible journey from its early temporary stepping stones all the way up to its permanent orbital milestones. By tracking exactly how the physical hardware evolved over time, we'll see the methodical progression of aerospace engineering, and we'll meet a truly pioneering figure who bridged these eras. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. A fundamental truth of aerospace development is that before there was the massive Tiangong space station, there were the space labs. It's an absolutely crucial distinction. You don't just build a huge permanent space station overnight, right? You really have to test the waters first. You need a solid proof of concept to master complex things like orbital rendezvous, life support, and midterm human operations. And honestly, that is exactly what the space labs provided. They were the essential predecessors, literally the testing grounds up in low Earth orbit that laid all the groundwork and completely retired the risk for everything that followed.
Now, before we introduce the central human figure of our story, let's do a super quick terminology check. As you followers of the program probably already know, we're focusing on taikonauts. That's the specific designation for Chinese astronauts. The individual we're going to highlight next is one of the absolute most celebrated taikonauts in the program's entire history, and her career perfectly encapsulates the massive technological leaps we're looking at today. So this brings us to a very clear three-step chronological progression. Era 1 kicks off with the Tiangong-1 space lab. That was the vital first step into orbit, and that momentum carries directly into Era 2 with the Tiangong-2 space lab, which built upon those initial tests and pushed the endurance of both the hardware and the crew even further. Finally, this whole step-by-step learning process culminates in Era 3, the fully realized Tiangong space station. It's just a beautiful, incredibly logical progression from an early prototype to a finalized, permanent orbital presence.
And this brilliantly illustrates a massive technological leap. On one hand, we start with the space labs, Tiangong-1 and 2. These were essentially laboratories for trial and error, purposefully designed with limited lifespans to prove very specific operational capabilities. But moving over to the Tiangong space station, well, that isn't just a minor name change. It is the major transition from a temporary testing ground to a fully operational, permanent, modular goal. Basically, it's the difference between pitching a high-tech tent and building a permanent orbital research facility.
Taikonaut Wang Yaping, bridging the eras of Tiangong.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how perfectly one person's career maps right onto the hardware evolution we just mapped out. According to our source material, taikonaut Wang Yaping actually lived in both the Tiangong-1 space lab and the later Tiangong space station. She literally bridged the eras. She was right there during the critical testing phase of that first stepping stone, and then she actually returned to space years later to inhabit the permanent orbital facility that her early tests made possible. Her personal journey directly mirrors the structural triumphs of the entire program.
But her time in orbit definitely wasn't just about residency. Wang Yaping made absolute history. She was the very first Chinese woman to perform a spacewalk. Think about that for a second. Stepping out of a spacecraft into the complete void of space is literally one of the most physically and technically demanding tasks any human being can ever undertake. Doing so marks a totally critical capability milestone for the whole program, and her incredible accomplishment adds this massive layer of historical weight and human courage to the broader technological story.
As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a final thought. We've seen the methodical evolution from early space labs to a fully operational space station, and we've witnessed the incredible human milestones of pioneers like Wang Yaping. The groundwork is completely laid, the hardware is in place, and the capabilities have been proven. So, from space labs to space stations, what groundbreaking firsts will taikonauts achieve next? It's a truly thrilling question to ponder. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.